Hey, what's up everyone? It's Duncan from overlandjournals.com and welcome to my Overlanding for Beginners series. And today's video I talk about caring for the environment. I'll see you in a bit. Welcome back. Now, if you missed the previous videos to this series, I'll leave a link in the description below and a link above. Go check that out. You'll find them quite useful, so don't forget to check the past videos out. If you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing. My channel is all about sharing my experiences in overlanding or off-road touring with the wider community. And I do a whole heap of overlanding here in Australia, particularly South Australia where I live. Wherever you may live, if you're into overlanding, then consider yourself part of the fortunate bunch, as I like to call ourselves. That's because we get to travel to and experience places most other travelers don't. But then with that freedom comes a considerable amount of responsibility, and particularly responsibility towards the environment. Sadly, a sight I see more often as I travel these days is travelers who leave a very bad impact on the environment. That's because they don't really care for it. They're out there to have a really good time, and so are we all, but in a small portion of overlanders tends to not really care about the environment, and that unfortunately in the longer term leads to track closures, which is something we're beginning to see quite often happening here in Australia particularly, and it may be happening in your part of the world as well. So we have a responsibility to make sure we clean up and leave as a minimum amount of impact on the environment as we possibly can. So here are some of the things I feel we as overlanders should pay close attention to, starting with garbage. If you can take it all out there, you certainly can return with it. It's all about managing it and being conscious of what you're doing. So manage your garbage very well is very important. In a recent video I talked about how I manage my garbage. So I'll leave a link above and in the description below. Go check that out. But as responsible overlanders, we can all do our part in managing our garbage. It's easy. So the next on my list is caring for wildlife. Now, we all love to see wildlife wherever we travel to. It's part of that experience, part of the excitement, and we want to take a whole heap of pictures, which is brilliant. But what I've seen, and particularly back in Africa, what I've seen is some people, some travelers want to get that real close look or get that picture that they're so wanting to get. So what they do is, to lure these animals closer to them, they leave food lying behind. And that's not such a great thing, because in the longer term what that does is that it removes from these animals their natural way of finding food. They become dependent on human feeding them, and then eventually they become a nuisance, or in some cases a danger to humans. So what this means is that these animals need to get put down. In one experience which I heard of a few years ago back in Africa, a pride of, I think it was 12 or 13 lions had to be put down because they got so used to getting fed by humans and became dangerously a dangerous situation. So they got all put down. I mean, that's such a shame. And then what this is also doing is depriving other travelers of getting that same experience. So don't feed the wildlife. Next on the list is caring for the tracks we drive on. It's because the tracks are there that we're able to get out there and do the off-road touring that we all love doing. So the minimum of impact we leave, the better it is for future travelers. So first of all, drop your tire pressures. Not only does tire pressures make it a lot easier on your vehicle suspension and also easier on the occupants, but also it leaves a much lesser of an impact on the track. So lower your tire pressures. If you got 4x4, engage 4x4. Sometimes I've been with friends who travel and say, oh, I can get through this track because I'm good at what I'm doing, two-wheel drive is good enough for me. No. Yes, you may be able to get through without any difficulty on your two-wheel drive, but what it does is it makes your vehicle work a lot harder. And in this particular case, if you're in two-wheel drive, you are making the rear wheels work a lot harder than they need to if four-wheel drive was engaged. And what it does is it just digs into the track, and that's where corrugations happen. So what that means is that the more you dig in, the bigger your corrugation, and that makes it so much more difficult for other travelers. So if you've got 4x4, engage 4x4. And having said that, if you don't have 4x4, consider whether you should be on that track to start with. Now, you may be, and your vehicle might have enough power to get you through, but do you really want to be irresponsible? So consider that. So always be on 4x4, four-wheel drive engaged. That leaves a lot less of a impact on the track. So when nature calls and there's no facilities, you have to go to the bush. I mean, that's, there's no choice about it. But, again, we need to be responsible how we do this. So particularly if you're doing number 2, then you dig a hole, do your job, and then rather than just covering it up and covering up the toilet paper that you would have used, best is to burn the toilet paper, because particularly if you're using biodegradable toilet paper, as I do and a lot of other travelers do as well, burn the toilet paper. And by burning, what you're doing is just speeding up the biodegrading process, because the argument could be, yeah, well, they're biodegrading, why do I have to burn it? I just cover it up. And yes, over a period of time they will biodegrade. But what I've seen is, in the meantime, animals come along, they dig this up, and then next minute you've got a campsite or just a roadside full of nothing but toilet paper. And I've seen it in a lot of my travels. So do the right thing, cover it before you cover the your job up, burn it. I use a blowtorch. I talked about it in my previous video, and then cover it up. Like the vast majority of overlanders, you may be the responsible type, and I'm sure you are, but if you come across litter left behind by other travelers, clean it up, bring it back with you. Yes, they are being irresponsible, and you could always say to yourself, why should I clean up behind somebody else? And it's true, and it's very annoying, and I get angry too. But then the right thing to do is clean it up, because as I said, it's a small percentage of travelers who do this, but they spoil it for the larger community. So by cleaning up and doing our part, we are preventing track closures, and that keeps it open for future generations to get out there and enjoy exactly what we've enjoyed as well. So try and clean up behind others if they have been unfriendly towards the environment. Now, there's no campsite without a campfire. We all live for the campfire, because the campfire is an integral part of any campsite, and we'll all agree on that. But what that means also is we need firewood to get a campfire going. So be well aware of the rules and regulations. Now, like here in Australia, in most reserves that we travel through or travel into, picking up of firewood, even if they've just fallen or decaying, dead trees, is not allowed. And there's a good reason for that, because that fallen trees, fallen branches, they form part of the ecosystem. So picking up firewood is a big no-no. At the same time, this is just stating an obvious, but don't break branches or don't cut trees, especially in areas where it's not allowed. So just take firewood with you. So do a bit of pre-planning at your trip planning stage, and try and work out or find out whether firewood is allowed to be picked or not allowed in those areas. Finally, respect the rules. There's a reason why there's rules. I know sometimes here in Australia we all complain that there's too much regulation, and in certain aspects of it, true, I do agree as well. But especially in situations like environmental concerns, and from what I've seen happening lately with people not caring for the environment, there's a good reason why these rules are there. And also, we try to be as knowledgeable as possible when it comes to a lot of things, but there are certain instances where there is ignorance in us, and that leads to that's why the rules are there, to try and educate us so that we do the right thing. So always, when you drive into a place, if there is signboards that's talking of the rules and regulations, or at your trip planning stage, that before you set off on a trip, try and figure out these things as well, what rules apply and what rules don't apply, and so on, and then act within those rules. As I said, there is a reason why these rules are there, and it's with the help of these rules that we all get as a community. We can help the authorities or just help with ourselves to preserve these environments, so that future generations can enjoy it as much as we have. So I hope you found this video useful and liked it. Please do give it a thumbs up if you did. If you're new to this channel, please do subscribe. My channel is all about sharing my experiences and my knowledge in overlanding with the wider community. And if you're a fellow overlander and you feel there are other things that should be added to that list of caring for the environment, please do leave it in the comments below. It's always better to share with the wider community. That's what I encourage. And thanks for watching. I'll see you in my next video.